2 years ago, nobody in the NASCAR garage thought Shane van Gisbergen would be anywhere near the top of the Cup Series point standings. He was the guy from New Zealand who showed up, won one race on a street course, and everybody figured that was it. That initial shock quickly gave way to a collective dismissal by the elite drivers, who considered ovals an entirely different universe, a place where a road course ringer simply could not survive the intense drafting and brutal aerodynamics required to win. They looked at his spectacular debut and chalked it up to a bizarre anomaly, a fun story that would inevitably fade once the real racing began. But what the establishment failed to realize was that they were not dealing with a rookie. They were dealing with an untouchable force of nature who was quietly preparing to completely rewrite the rulebook on what is possible in modern stock car racing. To truly understand the magnitude of this ongoing upset, we have to go back to that debut in 2023, when he spectacularly conquered the chaotic Chicago street race. During his very first attempt, the entire NASCAR garage was left in a state of absolute and total disbelief. It was a massive shock to the system, but the critics immediately placed handicaps on his future potential. They said, sure, he can turn right and left, but wait until he gets onto a 1.5-mile speedway. Wait until he experiences the awful sensation of losing the nose in dirty air at 200 miles per hour. And for a brief moment in 2024, during his transition into the Xfinity Series, it seemed like those critics were absolutely right. The learning curve was incredibly steep and filled with unfortunate incidents. There were times when he looked lost, struggling with the nuances of understeer and the complex art of drafting in massive packs. He faced races where his car felt awful, sliding wildly out of the groove, while the seasoned veterans easily chased him down and passed him. It was a humbling period, a grueling test of his resolve where climbing the leaderboard felt like an impossible task. But instead of retreating back to the comfort of his international successes, he studied the data, absorbed the brutal lessons of the Xfinity Series, and completely retooled his driving style. Then came 2025, the year everything shifted and the narrative of the struggling outsider was shattered into pieces. He did not just improve, he evolved into a terrifying threat. Armed with new weapons in his arsenal, he began executing flawless green flag passes on tracks where he was previously guaranteed to struggle. He started running up front during the Coca-Cola 600, holding his own against the absolute best the sport had to offer. The garage was no longer laughing. They were watching in stunned silence as this supposedly one-dimensional driver began mastering the intricate dance of oval racing. He was learning how to manipulate the air, how to protect his front splitter, and how to maintain momentum on the high banks. Now here is where 2026 gets interesting. The stakes have never been higher, especially with the relentless pressure of the chase format looming over every single weekend. The elite drivers know that if he makes it into the playoffs, his road course supremacy makes him a guaranteed lock to advance, meaning they absolutely have to beat him on the ovals to eliminate him. But beating him on the ovals is suddenly becoming an incredibly difficult task. Now for the biggest part of the story, the defining moment that forced everyone to finally admit his superior talent. It happened during a high-stakes restart at Las Vegas, a moment of visual storytelling that will be replayed for decades. He was running near the front, pushing the car to its absolute physical limits, when the back end suddenly snapped loose at over 180 miles per hour. It was a massive moment of oversteer, the kind of violent twitch that sends even the most experienced champions hard into the outside wall. The car was sliding completely sideways, the tires screaming as they desperately searched for grip, the front splitter hovering mere millimeters from the painted line. For a split second, disaster seemed completely inevitable. But in a display of unnatural, almost alien car control, he did not panic. He did not slam on the brakes. Instead, he managed to catch the slide, seamlessly transitioning the massive stock car into a perfect, controlled drift. He kept his foot in the throttle, steered into the skid, and miraculously gathered it back up without losing a single position. The sheer awe and admiration from the fans in the grandstands was deafening, but it was nothing compared to the reaction inside the race cars around him. The drivers trailing him had the best seat in the house for this impossible save, and they were left utterly speechless. When the race concluded, the social proof started pouring in from the most respected voices in the sport. Denny Hamlin, a man not known for handing out unearned praise, openly stated on his podcast that what he witnessed was the mark of an elite, superior driver. Hamlin admitted that the level of car control required to save a Cup Series machine, at that angle, at that speed, is something only a handful of humans on Earth possess. Other veterans echoed this sentiment, expressing shock and pure disbelief that a driver with such limited oval experience could possess that kind of instinctual reflex. They realized that his background in international racing had given him a unique set of skills that perfectly translated to saving a heavy, low downforce stock car on a slick track. He was no longer just the guy from New Zealand who won a street race. He was a legitimate contender who was systematically dismantling their preconceived notions. Through all of this immense praise and the skyrocketing anticipation of his future greatness, he has remained remarkably grounded. He speaks with a quiet, conversational authority, acknowledging the immense challenges of the Cup Series while confidently asserting that he still has a lot more to learn. This narrative tension, the constant push and pull between his humble demeanor and his spectacular on-track heroics, is exactly what makes his journey so incredibly captivating. He has completely flipped the script, transforming from an underdog novelty act into a genuine championship threat in record time. Every time he straps into the car, the entire racing world holds its breath, waiting to see what impossible feat he will pull off next. He is destroying expectations, rewriting history, and proving that true generational talent cannot be confined to a single discipline. The question isn't whether SVG can compete on ovals anymore. It's how soon he starts winning on